Bonsoir, monsieur, mademoiselle. Nous voici ce soir encore dans l'émission de l'équipe du dimanche présentée par Coach Fofo, tous les dimanches à partir de 4h30. Et nous sommes là ce soir et nous avons dans notre studio l'invité vraiment spécial du nom de Justin Reed, qui est le fondateur de Quick Fit Sport Academy et aussi le fondateur de DC Cup, que ce soir nous allons parler du sport, de son projet et aussi nous allons parler comment les Noirs aussi peuvent arriver dans le monde du sport avec le business et parler beaucoup de choses pour que nous informons notre communauté. Coach Ray, can you present yourself to our community?
Absolutely, and thank you for having me on this show, Coach Fofo. I appreciate it. I know last time I was there was before this whole coronavirus thing hit.
Exactly.
We had a great time, on the show, and that was only a few weeks after my firstborn child was born. So definitely got a little bit more sleep, since the last time I was on the show, but we'll definitely look forward to us having a good segment here. So my name is Justin Reed, and I'm actually originally from Canada, but I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area. Soccer has been something that's been a part of my life for an extremely long time. It's been a part of my family life as well. I started playing at the age of 4, and I played all the way up to college. So my dad played in high school and in college. My brother played in college as well. So this was a sport that was kind of ingrained in me, with me being the youngest of all of my siblings. So I played club soccer, went to the University of Delaware, played there for 4 years. I came back to the Washington, D.C. area to coach. I was coaching at the Chesapeake Athletic Dragons, which was a Premier Development League team. They are now a defunct club, but that gave me pretty much my opportunity to start coaching. So I was actually working with an under 13 team in the last year of the club, and it was my only year actually working in the club. I would later go off, and I was with a mentor, still a good friend of mine to this day, Myron Garnes, and he gave me an opportunity to coach in Herndon, Virginia, as well as Reston, Virginia. So I was able to really get as much experience as possible coaching, which led me to starting Quick Feet Soccer Training. Quick Feet Soccer Training started in Prince George's County, and we focused in on 4 major cities in the county. We focused on Laurel, Bowie, Upper Marlboro, and Fort Washington. And the focus of the clinics was just to introduce African-American kids to soccer. This was back in 2006. Kind of like soccer was growing at the time. I mean, it's still growing, of course, but it really hadn't touched Prince George's County all that much. But we had a lot of interest. We had a lot of kids who signed up. We actually ran a league for about 2 years that had about 200 kids in it throughout the county. And then after that league, we ended up starting a Quick Feet Soccer Club. And it was a club, we grew to about 60 players. That club only lasted about 3 years, but we had to get rid of the club because we had other big programs coming in and taking all of our better players. And it was already difficult to get players in a county like Prince George's, where soccer is not the main sport. Mm-hmm. Right. So you look at basketball and football are the main 2 sports. So after that, I was able to transition into starting Quick Feet Soccer for kids. And that's now expanded to 20 locations. And we serve anywhere between 750 to 1,000 kids a year. So it was just amazing, all the things that you kind of went through to get to this point. It was absolutely wonderful. So love the organization, the coaches that I bring in. I love those guys as well. They do a great job. They are all willing to learn. They're all willing to help, and they're all willing to do what it takes.
And then we know, as the founder of a Quick Foot Soccer Academy, and now we see new projects coming this year. And I believe it's a DC Cup, who is going to be one of major things to be focusing. Can you talk a little bit about DC Cup who's coming, and then how we're going to be infrastructure because of this COVID-19 is there? People would like to know more about the DC Cup who's coming.
Sure, absolutely. So I originally started doing soccer tournaments about 10 years ago in Calvert County, and I did it for about 3 years. and we actually grew the tournament to about 60 teams. Most of the teams, ironically, came from outside of Maryland. I don't know if it was the time of the year. I don't know if it was the distance to go all the way down to Calvert County. I don't know what it was, but we just couldn't seem to really grow that tournament to where it needed to go. So the tournament actually went under because the club also went under. So now 10 years later, kind of fast forward, I really wanted to get involved with soccer tournaments again. And I really wanted to find a way to unite the Black soccer coaches and the Black clubs throughout the Washington, D.C. area, and in addition to the Mid-Atlantic. Now, the tournament's open to everybody, of course, but the main mission is to unite the Black clubs in the area and for us to come together and compete against each other under a tournament that is ours. So the DC Cup is going to be August 7th to the 9th this year. We had to push it back a month because of the coronavirus and everything that's going on. But next year, we're going to run it from July 2nd to the 5th because the purpose of the tournament is to celebrate Independence Day in the U.S. But this is our first year, and we want to get it going. We project we're going to get a lot of local teams because there's a lot of restrictions from outside the state or outside the Washington, D.C. area in terms of teams traveling. Like some teams cannot travel if you're from New Jersey or New York. I think they've got strong stipulations there. International-wise, we had some teams from Barbados, Italy, Trinidad and Tobago. They were going to come this summer, but seeing now that everything has transpired, they actually ended up canceling the arrangement. So we hope by next year, we will be able to attract those same teams and even more international teams to come to this area, because I think that's something that we don't get too often. We don't have too many youth international teams who come to this area to play in tournaments.
We know the pandemic is a struggle for the club, especially the league. And then how can you see the COVID-19 change all the soccer season or your project for this year? Eventually, we're probably going to catch up. Is there any financially option who your club had to go through until now?
Well, we're very fortunate as an organization to apply for the Small Business Administration. It wasn't a loan, it was a grant. So we ended up getting that grant. Prince George's County, they also have a grant, and that's pending. I think they're looking at our application today or tomorrow, but we're very confident about that. And then we're going to get some funding from the state as well. So we're very fortunate to keep the program going. But overall, it's impacted just everything. All right, from the way the parents kind of now view having their kids participate. Like you've got some parents who are ready; they want their kids to get back outdoors. But then you've got a lot of parents who aren't ready yet, and they're just not sure. So that's a big thing, especially when it comes to getting business. Now, as we know, with the whole social distancing policy now, you can only have up to 10 kids, right? Yeah. So what we've done now is we said, well, we're only going to have up to 6 because we want the parents to feel comfortable, and we're going to increase the space of the field. All right. So all those things we are doing, but it's affecting business because we're very, very limited in terms of how many kids we can have in the class. And then, of course, we've had some kids who've transferred over to the fall. They don't want to participate in our programs when they get started in the beginning of next month. So we will kick off July 1st. That's when most of the counties, pretty much all of the counties, are going to open up for sports activities, organized sports activities like ours.
So what is
that's the impact?
What is the safety position? What is the safety position you guys are leading on the place through all the guidelines, the state, the MSYC, and then the local government are put in place to make sure the parent trust or your organization, so they release the kid can come back to the training in July.
What we did was we put together protocols, and the protocols focused on the coach, focused on the organization as Quick Feet Soccer for Kids. It focuses on the coach, it focuses on the parent, and it focuses on the player. So all 4 have a responsibility. As an organization, Quick Feet has a responsibility to make sure that we have testing in place, not the COVID testing, of course, but that we're testing the temperature of the kids as they come into the class. We're going to have the hand sanitizer, all right, for kids to use. We're going to require that the kids wear masks after their session. And our coaches are going to wear masks as well. The coach responsibility, we want the coaches to be able to put down all of the equipment, pick up all of the equipment. We've asked the parents not to help. You know, I mean, we got some really great parents in our organization, but we've asked them not to help, at least for this first session, until we can get a clear understanding of when this, coronavirus is going to drift away. In terms of the parent, we've asked the parent to please make sure you also check the temperatures of your children before they come to the class, because we want to make sure that they're healthy enough. And again, we have a lot of good parents in our programs who do not bring their kids to the class when they're sick anyway, even before this whole coronavirus thing happened. But we definitely want to reiterate that. And then as far as the players, most of our kids are pretty young. They're 2 to 7 years old. So it's going to be very difficult to tell them not to give hugs and not to give high fives, because they just don't understand why not. You know, this is what they're so used to. So we're going to try to do the best we can to mitigate that as much as possible. In terms of games, we'll do like 1-versus-1 games. We may eventually build up to a full game, probably 6 to 8 weeks into the session, but we're going to try to keep them at social distance as much as possible.
Oui, monsieur, mademoiselle, oui, nous sommes dans la mission de l'équipe du dimanche présentée par coach Fofo, où ce soir nous avons le fondateur de Soccer Academy Quick Foot et aussi l'organisateur de DC Cup qui va s'organiser cet été à DC. Et nous avons Justin dans notre studio. Et ce soir, nous voulons parler de tout ce qui encombre le COVID-19 et comment le soccer, le football a été dérangé aux États-Unis et comment on revient avec les protocoles et toutes les mesures de sécurité que l'État et les organisations sont en train de mettre sur pied. Et c'est ça que nous parlons ce soir. Et notre invité ce soir, c'est Justin Reed, qui est dans notre studio pour nous délivrer beaucoup de choses sur l'avenir de son Soccer Academy et puis des projets énormes dans la communauté noire. Justin, we know we have a Black Coaches platform and the DC, Virginia, and Maryland. And we want to know how can we, the Black community or the Black coaches can be the leader, can lead the business. Can we have any structure by the business ID to our community, to people who work hard on our community, the Black coaches? Can we have any idea about the business mind or business something growing up our community?
Definitely. And I would say now more than ever is the best time, because what we're going to see when we come out of this coronavirus is we're going to see a lot of changes in terms of the club structure. I've already seen clubs failing and they're not returning. I think I read some statistics. It's a projection. And of course, projections are just projections. But they say about 47% of youth sports programs, soccer included in that, will not return after this coronavirus because they've gone under. So what that does now is it creates opportunity. Sad to see that happen because we want the kids to be a part of programs, but it creates opportunity. I think what the Black soccer coaches have to do is we have to build up what I call a Black soccer coaches Wall Street. All right. And we have to think business. That's the thing that we fail at. We don't think business first when it comes to soccer because everybody else is thinking business first. Yeah. From your big major clubs like Bethesda and McLean, they generate $4 to $5 million a year. SAC, they have assets that are up to 15 million, right? Including all their fields. They're thinking business, and the people who are on their board are business people. We've got to think the same way. We have to think the same way if we're going to get ahead. We've got a lot of great ideas, but a lot of great ideas, you have to fund it. You got to have money and you got to have time, and you got to have people who are going to execute those ideas. All right. So we got more ideas than ever. It's just when it comes to funding, when it comes to execution in terms of individuals doing it, we fail at that. And I think that's our biggest problem as a Black soccer community group. Another thing we have to do, in addition to thinking business, is we have to interconnect our programs. Every community, from the Chinese community to the Jewish community, they interconnect their businesses. You can go to Chinatown. You can go to Chinatown anywhere in this world, and you see pretty much the same thing. You see a lot of restaurants, you see shops, you see everything, but they're interconnecting their business because the goal is to bring people to Chinatown.
Exactly.
The Black soccer community can do the same thing, but it's going to take people not competing. People are going to have to go into different lanes. Whether so, like take a tournament, for example. A tournament can have a lot of variations. You can have an international tournament that's a high level tournament. You can have a mid-level tournament that only wants classic level teams.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a tournament that just has recreational teams. You can
Exactly.
have a tournament that's just for boys. You can have a tournament that's just for girls. You can have a tournament that's for girls and boys. So there's so many things that we can do in tournaments. The key is with the Black soccer community, we can't all compete, you know, in terms of, well, if the DC Cup is gonna focus on being an international tournament and a high level tournament, somebody else can't come into that space and do that. The DC Cup now has to support somebody else who's doing a tournament that may cater to classic teams, of which we can tell that classic team or that classic tournament, well, the winners of your program are going to be able to be eligible to participate in the DC Cup. That's interconnecting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we see in our community, we very, it's hard to work together. And then me and you, we talk about that a couple years ago. We be talking about how can we bring our people together. And because today we want to be winning, we had to come together. We're going to be doing the best thing. We had to come together. But you know where I know where in our community is very hard. That's one of the big thing we had to overcome. So we bring our people. So it's going to be a lot of work, but I believe if we see 1 or 2, 3 people started and they trust them, the other people can join. And I have a question for you. How can we do to see a Black coach should not just longer just be a coach?
Well, that's something that's important, and that's something that I've been preaching at least for the last 3 years. And it's something, as long as I'm involved in the soccer community, that's going to be something you're always going to hear me talk about, being more than just a coach. In soccer, in this area, you're very lucky if you can make 25 to 30,000 as a coach for a Bethesda or a McLean. You might see 50,000, but that's probably going to be the max. There are very few jobs in this area in terms of being a technical director or a director of coaching where you can make 130,000, 140,000. Very few. So therefore, knowing that we've got all of these coaches and so few jobs where you can actually make a living, it's important for you to be an entrepreneur in soccer. Now, an entrepreneur in soccer can mean a lot of things, all right? But again, you got to focus in on one major thing that's going to be able to allow you to scale up. So say, for example, I think one thing in the Black soccer community that we don't have is a magazine. Magazines are still in, not so much print magazines, but digital. So if there was someone who's a great writer, someone who can get contributing writers, and I would contribute in a heartbeat. I love to write. And I've actually written articles, and I tried to contribute it to the United Soccer Coaches Soccer America magazine, and they never posted it. They never posted because I guess it's too controversial. But we do not have a magazine for Black soccer coaches only where people can go to. So kind of like an Ebony or a Jet when that was around, right? We need something like that that's profiling your club, that's profiling my organization, that's getting it out there so people know exactly what's going on. So that's an economic engine right there, and that's media. That's important. All right, we talked about the tournament, we talked about a club. So there's a lot of things that can be done in soccer that generate money and to be an entrepreneur. But it's going to be important that the Black soccer coach understands, look, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to contribute this to the Black soccer community. If it's a tournament, if it's the magazine, if it's the club, whatever it is, it can't be everything. Because when you try to do a bunch of things, and I've been down that road before, I tried to do a bunch of different things. It doesn't work because you're only one person.
It doesn't work. Yeah.
It doesn't work. You're only one person, and nobody's ever going to care about your business more than you. So it's just getting the coaches to understand that they know where they're at in terms of coaching financially. They know where they can be. And it's very sad because there are some coaches who are much older than the average Black soccer coach in the area They're in their 60s and their 70s, and these guys are struggling. They talk to me every day. They're struggling, and I don't want to be in that situation. And I wouldn't want any other coach who's in their 20s or 30s, somebody that I can mentor, to be in that situation at 60, 70 years old. So we have to think entrepreneurship. And in order to grow as an entrepreneur, you need support. Your support's going to come from all over. It's going to come from all different races, especially when you're producing something of value. But it must start in your community. That's how every business that has ever become anything. All right. You can look at the entertainment business. The Jewish community, they're the ones who run the entertainment business. The insurance business, the Jewish community runs the insurance business. Geico, Allstate, all of those were founded by Jewish folks because they had the backing and they had the support. Now, I'm an Allstate client, right? I know folks who have Geico. I know folks who have all these different insurances. So it's very important that when we build, but we have to support each other, at least in the initial stages.
What kind of strategy or education pieces we can put on the place? Because what you've been saying, for me, who living in Europe for 20 years, who play soccer professional, and before came to USA over 20 years, being the system, being the community, and also coaches, it's kind of hard to preach the message. So we had to be able to put a strategy and education pieces to change our mindset for our Black coaches. So how can we do that?
The very first thing we have to do is to understand that what our common goal is and what the common denominator is, and we have to be able to relate. A European coach, for example, a Black European coach in England may deal with different issues than a native Black coach here, but I'm sure there are common denominators that we can agree upon. So I think that's the very first thing. We have to look past the accent, whether you're African or whether you're English or whether you're native Black American. Forget all the accents and forget the typical stereotypes that have been around for a very long time. Native Blacks don't like Africans and Europeans and all that. That's the very first thing that has to die, right? So then after that, now we can start thinking about how can we move forward together as a collective, okay? And I'm going to go back to kind of what I talked about in the last question. That collective is always going to be business, because it's very easy for people to get frustrated and it's very easy for people to give up. Every idea is always great in the beginning. That first month of that idea, that first 2 months, you got energy, but then all of a sudden you don't see any money coming in. You see a lot of time wasted. And then you go back to yourself and you're like, what the hell did I just do for 2 months? I've been down that road. I know plenty of people, right, who've been down that road. And part of that has to do based upon the fact that the support is not there. But it has to always rolls back to the business, finance, right? Because the money to business is like blood to our bodies as human beings, right? Money to business is like gas to cars and trucks. You got to have it. And it's not about having it and being greedy. It's a tool that's going to help you to build brand value in whatever you do. That's how a Black person who's coming from England can relate to a native Black person here. So we have to think, again, business as soccer coaches.
Monsieur, mademoiselle, nous arrivons à notre troisième volet et vous êtes dans votre émission préférée, l'équipe du dimanche, présentée par Coach Fofo tous les dimanches à partir de 4h30. Vous pouvez nous regarder sur le YouTube, sur le Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, sur Roku, Amazon et surtout sur www.afriquetoday.com, où nos émissions passent sur cette plateforme tous les dimanches. Oui, nous sommes sur notre dernier volet et nous avons notre invité de ce soir, c'est Justin Reed, qui est le fondateur de Quick Fit Sport et aussi le grand organisateur de DC Cup qui aura lieu sa première édition cette année dans le DC et puis qui préfère agendrer sur la communauté noire. Justin, we are getting closer to the end of this, edition. Everybody's seen you, and we would like you to come back when the time is getting close for DC Cup. So you can come back so we can talk and then promote DC Cup. Make sure I already talked to you. We're going to be trying to be part of a DC Cup to make sure the first edition we support and then we grow together. But I have a few questions before we close this, event this evening. Is there any project? Is there any project is going for the Black coaches? Because I see we have a platform, and then the past week I've been watching a lot of discussion, a lot of reading, a lot of writing. Is there any projects in the pipeline now?
So, so what we just did on Saturday, this past Saturday, is we had a nice turnout on Zoom. We had probably about 12 coaches online, which is great. 12 out of the 34 that are on the WhatsApp group, and seeing that it was an impromptu meeting that folks just knew about, 2-3 hours prior to the meeting happening. I thought it was a great turnout. It was good to hear from pretty much everybody. It was good to see folks who I'd never met before. But what we got out of the meeting was, one, we wanted to focus on policy. We wanted to focus on how can we proceed in terms of things like having to deal with racism, okay, on the field. I keep hearing that, and I've experienced it on the field, and I know plenty of other coaches, and I know plenty of kids have experienced it on the field. But one thing we got out of it is, how can we get the support of the Maryland State Youth Soccer Association? How can we get the support of Virginia Youth Soccer Association? And one suggestion I made was, we have to back candidates in order to run for the board of directors. That's how you make change on MSYSA and BYSA level. If we go to the executive director, Flo Egan, and we say, hey, Flo, racism is going on. Can you mandate that all the clubs, have a clause that says, don't be racist? I mean, it just doesn't work like that, right? Like, you have to have proof and you have to have evidence, right? And these are things that has to be passed. Okay, so policy was one thing we discussed. The second thing we discussed was developing the leagues and tournaments. So there's a couple in the group who want to develop a league, and then there's some of us who have tournaments. We talked about the importance of supporting each other's tournaments and leagues, and finding ways to also benefit the club who participates and supports it. Mm-hmm. So, for example, what we're going to do with the DC Cup is, we're going to give a portion back of the revenue that we bring in to clubs that need funding, that help kids like your club, DCFC. There will be a portion of the net profit that will be written back to your club, okay? Because we want to support your club in as many ways as we can. If we're getting money coming in and the tournament is doing well and we're profitable, we want to share it. We want to share it, especially if you're bringing your teams to our tournament to help our tournament. We want to give money back to help your tournament, or to help your tournament, or whatever, or to help your club, or whatever you do. All right. So those are the two things that we got out of it. I think as we progress and as we meet more, we're going to get more out of it. So we've set a monthly meeting. The next meeting is going to be on the 18th of July. That'll give us an opportunity to kind of update everybody as far as where we're at in terms of action items. We want to put a list of every Black coach who runs any type of program onto the website. So the blacksoccercoaches.org website. There'll be a page that has a list of everybody possible. That way people know who's doing what and who runs what. That's the very first thing that we have to do, because I don't think enough of us know each other and what we're doing. We just don't, right? Because we've never really had a chance to all sit down, especially from this DC, Maryland, Virginia area, outside of the one time that we met, I believe, sometime last summer. So anyhow, that's going to be vital in order for us to be able to move forward. We have to continuously find ways to interconnect and work together.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is equipe Dimanche sports show. What we have today, Justin Reed, who's a founder for Quick Foot Soccer Academy, and he also the founder of DC Cup, who's coming this August, DC Metropolitan, who we like, we're getting close to the end of the season, this show. Justin, What is something you have we didn't ask you or you asked to say to the public before we close this show?
Well, I think my message was very, very clear. There has to be support for Black-run businesses. I know that's something that we stress in all different other types of industries, but it's something that I think in the times that we're dealing with right now, we have to do it more than ever. Mr. George Floyd, I mean, it was terrible just to watch that video, that 8-minute, 40-second video. I mean, it was just awful. But I'm also a person that's about prevention. And I think the biggest issue in the Black community that we deal with is our condition overall as a people. Racism exists, but other folks will never have respect for you when your condition is the state that it's in. You can drive to any of these major cities, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., during the day, and it's a mess, especially Baltimore. The unemployment rate for Black males in these major cities from New York to L.A. is anywhere between 35 to 54%. That's a shame. That's a shame. And I think that is the biggest issue that we have to focus on. We have to focus on the socioeconomics and how can we lift up our community. I mean, there's 43 million Native Blacks in this country. Not everybody's going to be lifted up, but we have to at least start to lift up the majority. And that's the biggest issue that we're dealing with. It's our condition more than actual racism, I think. That's our biggest effort. And that's what we should focus on. How can we build up our cities? How can we build up our communities, create jobs? That's the number one thing. Think about it. If Mr. Floyd had a job, I believe he had gotten laid off because of the coronavirus. And I think he had some fake 20s or something, or it was a bounce check. That's how the cop got a knee on him. What if George was in a situation where he had a steady job? Then he's not going to be given so-called counterfeit $20 bills or bounce checks. So it all goes back to socioeconomics, and I'm about prevention. And I think that's the number one way that we can do it. We have to build a community, an economic community.
Thank you so much, Justine. We're getting closer to to this show. We're going to be closing. We want to let you know we are your number one supporter. Anytime you are welcome to come to our show, Equipe Dimanche, to talk about sport, like the way we love to talk about sport, and then make sure those who outside to listen to the message we are delivering through the social media, through this platform. So we thank you, and then we wish you a good luck for all your project. And then I want to talk about also the people who we know, so we can support Quick Foot and DC Cup to be a great and a big business plan, and also a big tournament, international tournament on the DC Metropolitan. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you very much for having me, Coach Fofo.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care.